Is everybody awake? Because if you're not, you're about to be awakened. Awakened? Something like that. I asked our dear friend, Kate Mckeown, to fly out here from New York City and see what it's like in the good part of the country. Kate is very well known back in the Big Apple. She teaches and has taught for many years new ventures and entrepreneurship at Fordham University. And all of her students become her kids. And last night somebody asked her, how many children do you have? She said, thousands. So we asked Kate to come out and give her perspective from the East Coast on the future and what she sees as the ingredients to that future. Are you ready?
I'm ready. As Marty figured out last night, I'm a New Yorker, and if I don't talk with my hands, it's really bad. So, about 14 years ago, I had long hair, and I decided that I wanted to look like Deanna Troi on Star Trek. Now, there were some other issues at the time, and that was one. So I needed to invent a product to hold my hair. So I invent headbands that don't hurt and combs that don't fall out. Now what do? So I go get Pressman's book from Nolo Press, which I still tell all thousands of my children, remember Nolo Press. I get Pressman's book on Patent It Yourself, read it, write my patent, pay somebody to do the claims, because that's what they say, don't try this on your own. And then I prosecuted it myself. Like I went down to the Patent and Trademark Office, and I met Pedro Philogene, who was he was an assistant examiner, now he's a full-time examiner. And he kind of took a liking to me, so he let me like search up in those rooms that I don't think you guys use anymore, like the old patents. Because my combs, my prior art was people who were trying to make combs stay in 1890. That's when people were wearing combs, right? So at this time, we weren't on the internet yet, Google didn't have Google and all that, so I'm up there. So finally, Pedro says to me, okay, you've convinced me, but there's one more person you have to see before I'm going to patent. And he takes me down, it's 96, don't know if they're still there, takes me down to this huge office right now. Pedro's got a cubicle, and I've already learned from reading Pressman that my patent examiner is God, right? I already know that, so God's got a cubicle. Takes me down, and there's this woman sitting at this huge desk who does nothing but look at inventions that have Velcro. Mine had Velcro, right? So we walk in, and Pedro starts to say, she looks up from her desk and says, what do you got? I said, I got headbands that don't hurt, combs that don't fall out. I swear to God, she said, oh my God, I thought you looked familiar. She said, I bought your stuff on QVC. She turned to Pedro Philogene, she said, they're great, give her a patent. This is a huge geek out pleasure for me as I am completely self-taught. I've never had a course in IP in my life, but I love it. And so as I said to Larry, to be up here, you know, you got Drew and Todd, and you got these guys, like, I feel like I'm opening for Springsteen. Talking to you guys. So I was a little nervous about it, so I decided that the one way I could justify being here was to make a confession to Larry Udell that I've never made before. And since you're all here, I'm going to do it for all of you. The truth is, how many people here have seen Tootsie? All right, guys, get ready. The truth is, I'm a Vulcan. I made that ear out of Play-Doh this morning. It made me really nervous, like my speaker's making an ear out of Play-Doh. Good. Okay, so I decided, because I want to propose such radical systems change to you guys, that I would use Gene Roddenberry's brilliant method of saying something really weird from another perspective, except my ear was really starting to drive me crazy, so my ear's off. Here's what I want to tell you guys about. I believe that we need fundamental, radical systems change in education. Real quick, Vulcan sent me here and they sent me to a few great mentors. First great mentor they sent me to was W. Edwards Deming. He was a guy who went to Japan after World War II, and he made in Japan good news as opposed to bad news. I worked with him from the time he was 80 until he died, and he talked about systems change. And what I learned from that man was if you do systems change well, you can change a country in one generation. Because he did it, they did it. And I'm proposing systems change that I think could change our country in one generation. See, this is why I need my Vulcan ears to say stuff like that. So My second great mentor was Lou Mobley. He was the man who founded and ran IBM's executive school. He was in the 15-man task force, took IBM into computers under Watson Jr. Founded and ran the executive school, and his fundamental insight, working with 1 million executives, was learning occurs at a time of felt need and clear relevance. He did as much experiential learning in the IBM executive school as he could possibly do. My third mentor, after Lou, my co-author of this book, died, I met, Larry said I'm supposed to wave it, her book, Waving. He died, and I met Vern Harnish, who had founded the Young Entrepreneurs Organization. Through him, I met Ray Hickok, who founded the Young Presidents Organization. And we were young, we were a bunch of kids, we're young. There's like 10 of us in the YEO DC chapter. I'm president, and my mentor is Ray Hickok, the man who founded the Young Presidents Organization in 1949. Well, great love of my life was dead. Ray was dying of cancer. We didn't talk about anything that wasn't real. We didn't have a lot of time. And basically what he said to me is, after all this other stuff about YPO, and you get to be a hotshot, you get to go to the dinners, and you fly around the world, he said the true best thing about YPO is the forum, which is a peer support group. It's people helping one another. So, I ended up getting invited to teach at Fordham Grad School of Business. And so I thought, okay, what do I know about teaching? I'm going to do what I know helps entrepreneurs to learn and grow. In my class from the very beginning, you come in, you must do something real, preferably something you're passionate about. You do a diary every week that says, this is how I move my project forward and what help I need, and you help one another. Those are the 3 things, and I came up with a little acronym, which I call the 4 H's of innovation. Hustle with honor, help, and be helped. The rest of it's details. But let me back up a tiny little bit, because I'm getting carried away, getting ahead of myself. For 14 years, I taught in Fordham MBA school, and that was great. And I didn't teach like everybody else, and I did fine, and I was adjunct faculty, so I was under the radar, so I could get away with it. Love my kids. Here's my second confession after the Vulcan thing. They asked me to be entrepreneur fellow for the undergraduates, and that's when I went nuts. Completely, utterly nuts. As it turns out, these beautiful children, who are 20 years old, are going through the exact same education process that I went through 40 years ago, and that my mother went through 40 years before that. And let me describe to you the system. Our theory is rampant. We are teaching our children to be industrial-age workers just as we were when Alvin Toffler called it 40 years ago. He said we have a covert curriculum, we're teaching our kids to be factory workers, and the covert curriculum is timeliness, obedience, and the willingness to do rote repetitive work, and that has not changed. Maybe a little bit out here because you guys are enlightened about entrepreneurship. Hasn't changed. These beautiful young children are supposed to sit there and shut up and memorize, hour after hour, day after day. Now, what do? We take away their little devices. I'm telling you, and I'm opening at BJ's here, this is an open invitation to Hewlett-Packard. We need a GLAM machine, the Great Library at Alexandria machine. And whatever didn't work right with Negroponte and the one laptop per child, let's figure it out. The kids are carrying the Great Library at Alexandria around in their pockets, and they all know it. And we say, turn them off, sit down and memorize my factoid. Well, the kids are like bored out of their minds. I can remember being a kid. Did you ever bite your lip in the class to stay awake? Pinch your legs? 40 years later, the internet happened, the Cold War is over, and we are teaching children exactly the same way.